This is Right to Life Radio with John Girardi on Power Talk 96.7 and AM 1400, a production of Right to Life of Central California. And now, here's your host.
So we're now 2 weeks on from the overturning of Roe v. Wade. The California legislature has now fully passed its proposed amendment to the California state constitution, and it is going to go before the people of the state of California in a state constitutional amendment. Here to talk about that constitutional amendment, what it says, what it means, what it's going to do, what it might do, is my good buddy, the CEO of California Family Council, Mr. Jonathan Keller.
Yo. Good to be here.
All right, Jonathan. So I've been doing a lot of digging on this constitutional amendment, and I've been doing also some digging in relevant, related California law. Now, we've had a couple of different thoughts about this constitutional amendment, and our main thought has been confusion, I think. I think you and I have been sort of confused about this constitutional amendment because it's so vague. It's so broad. It's not a lot of words, just flat out words total. And it's just it's very unclear what it says and what it's going to do. So it makes me want, I would like, if you will allow me, although it's my show, I guess I can kind of say whatever that.
Go for it.
I
think
I will. This is the only thing that this constitutional amendment does. It amends Section 1.1 of Article 1 of the California State Constitutional to say the following: the state shall not deny or interfere with, and let's note that, interfere with.
It's pretty broad.
That's a pretty low standard.
Yep.
I mean, denying someone a right is one thing, but interfering with it, like in any way, state shall not interfere with an individual's reproductive freedom in their most intimate decisions, which includes their fundamental right to choose to have an abortion and their fundamental right to choose or refuse contraceptives. This section is intended to further the constitutional right to privacy guaranteed by Section 1 and the constitutional right not to be denied equal protection guaranteed by Section 7. Nothing herein narrows or limits the right to privacy or equal protection. That's the whole thing. The state shall not deny or interfere with an individual's reproductive freedom in their most intimate decisions, which includes their fundamental right to choose to have an abortion and their fundamental right to choose or refuse contraceptives. So, let's dig into that. So, basically what we're talking about is that this would prohibit or eliminate any state action.
Yes.
So it's something the state is doing that interferes with an individual's right to abortion. So I thought, so let's talk about this a couple of ways. First of all, just their fundamental right to choose to have an abortion. It doesn't say the right to choose to have an abortion subject to restrictions already existing within the California Health and Safety Code, to have an abortion prior to fetal viability and at any time when the health or safety of, or when the health or life of the mother is threatened, which is existing California law.
This is the area where I keep saying in interviews it's redundant because on the one hand, it's exactly saying what California law says. I mean, John, let me put it this way. If I may interrupt for a second.
You may.
It is almost impossible to deny someone an abortion in the state of California currently.
Right.
It is
even a post-viability.
Yes. Now,
abortion.
You can say logistically, before we hear the angry, screaming people on the other end of the radio dial, no, but I had to drive all the way to Los Angeles to get my late-term abortion. Mm-hmm. Okay, setting aside the logistics.
Yeah, I'm just getting there.
In terms of legality, it is basically impossible. If a woman goes to a doctor and an OBGYN in the state and says, I am not going to have this baby, I don't care that I am 8 months along,
I want an abortion.
Yeah, my husband and I broke up, or my boyfriend and I broke up, and I hate him, and I can't even stand the thought of having a child tied together with him, and as a result, I am going to have this abortion.
Right.
It would be detrimental to my mental and emotional health to have this baby.
Exactly. Because you're hitting on it. The standard in California is abortion up to the point of fetal viability is legal, no holds barred. After fetal viability, the point in an individual pregnancy where a child can survive outside the womb, after viability, abortion is only legal if the pregnancy threatens the mother's health. Now, health is very broadly defined. So if you say, this is going to destroy my mental health, my emotional health, my, whatever, a doctor, as long as a doctor says this threatens my patient's health, therefore she can have this late-term abortion. Okay. But that is existing California law. You do need some physician to make some determination that your health is threatened in order to have a post-viability late-term abortion.
Which is, again, almost a rubber stamp.
Very, very easy to get.
Right.
But you do need that step.
Right.
This constitutional amendment doesn't even have those provisos.
Right.
It says nothing about a right to abortion prior to fetal viability. It says nothing about a right to abortion when the mother's health or life is threatened. It just says a right to abortion. The state may not deny or infringe an individual's right to have an abortion. That's it. No holds barred. They could have included those provisos. Those provisos exist in California law. It exists in the California Health and Safety Code. Okay? California Health and Safety Code, section 123466. The state may not deny or interfere with a woman's right to choose or obtain an abortion prior to viability of the fetus or when the abortion is necessary to protect the life or health of the woman. Boy, look how transphobic the California Health and Safety Code is, Jonathan. It assumes that the person who can have an abortion is just a woman. Boy,
I know,
wow, that's
shocking.
Really transphobic. Anyway, so that's existing California law, and this state constitutional amendment seemingly, I mean, look, folks, just law 101 here. California law 101 here, I guess. You have the California state constitution, and you have normal California laws, all right? Kind of analogous to the U.S. Constitution and normal laws passed by Congress. A normal law passed by the California legislature, they pass thousands of laws every year. Easy peasy. A majority in the Assembly, a majority in the state Senate, and the governor signs it. You get a law. Amending the California Constitution is a much taller order. You can't just change things to the California Constitution willy-nilly. You need to get, if you want to amend the Constitution, I think the two ways to do it are, one, either two-thirds majorities in both houses of the legislature and a majority vote of the state of California, or two, you get a huge number of signatures to put an amendment to the California Constitution on the ballot. Those are the two ways you amend the California Constitution. So it's really hard to do, and as a result, the California Constitution is our foundational law in California. It's our super law. If the legislature passes a normal law with just a majority in the Assembly, majority in the Senate, and the governor signing it, if they pass a simple law that violates the California Constitution, well, the California State Supreme Court could then come in and declare that law to be unconstitutional, not in accord with the California state constitution. So our state constitution is supreme within California law. It's the bedrock of California law. Any normal law that you pass has to be consistent with it. So if we're amending the state constitution to say that the right to abortion has no qualifications on it, that it isn't qualified by what stage of the pregnancy you're in, that before fetal viability you have a right to abortion. If there's no qualification about, well, after fetal viability it's okay if the health of the mother is threatened. Without those qualifications, what are we legalizing here? And remember, this is a state where our state Medicaid program, Medi-Cal, funds abortion. Abortion is a covered service. Surgical elective abortion is a covered service under Medi-Cal. It is required to be a covered service under all individual insurance plans, employer-based insurance plans sold throughout the state. It has to be covered. So you're talking about late-term abortions on a healthy mom with a healthy baby. All of a sudden become Not even just that you have to go at least through the rubber stamp process of pretending like health is threatened because it's mental health and you just don't want the baby. No questions asked. State-funded 9-month abortion. That's what this constitutional amendment does.
Well, and John, let's go back and also for the devil's advocate here, almost literally, talking about people who are listening to this and saying, come on, don't you know that there is an infinitesimally small number of women who have abortions in the 8th month? Okay, fine.
Sure.
Let's go back to the second trimester. Let's imagine that there is a woman who finds out that she is pregnant. She's very excited. She has always wanted a little boy. She is thrilled. She and her husband have been waiting and trying for a long time to have a little boy. And then they find out at the ultrasound scan that they are having a little girl. And they say, we already had all this stuff planned out. The husband is like, I am very deeply committed that this is a boy. In fact, John, can I make an intersectional argument here? Actually?
Go for it. We're trying to have a gay kid.
Well, I mean, I hate to be really macabre, but let's imagine that this is two dads that say, hey, we want to have a little boy because we're going to raise him to be a football star or a basketball star.
Sure.
And we are super into sports.
Sure.
And then they find out that their surrogate mother is pregnant with a little girl. And the two dudes are like, we really do not want a little girl. We only want a boy. We're not about girls in any way, shape, or fashion. And I'm not implying anything inappropriate between these guys and the child. I'm just saying they could tell their surrogate person, the mother that is carrying their surrogate child,
right? You have to abort this kid.
You have to abort this kid,
right? So
because of the gender preference,
and we're talking about that never happens. It would be legal.
Yep.
It could happen.
Yep.
And it would happen.
And state
if
funded.
It never happened. At the state's expense. Yeah. So that's the kind of extremism that this constitutional amendment does. And I don't know whether this is sloppy drafting on the part of the Democrats in the legislature. They've been kind of cagey about what they're trying to do. I don't know if this is intentional. I've heard a lot of people speculate that this is not actually going to change anything in California law, and this is a cynical get-out-the-vote ploy by Democrats who want to get their base whipped up over Roe v. Wade being overturned and get them to the polls to vote for more Democrats for Congress to help, staunch the bleeding that the Democrats nationally are going to face in the House. I don't know. If that was the case, they would have written this to perfectly track along the same lines as the California Health and Safety Code, and they deliberately did not do that. This is deliberately much broader. So and those additional things in the Health and Safety Code could be deemed an interference by the state with the right to have an abortion. We'll dig more into this after the break. You're listening to Right to Life Radio on Power Talk 96.7 AM 1400, a production of Right to Life Central California, rtlcc.org. So we're looking at this constitutional amendment to enshrine a right to abortion in the state constitution. And the thing that I think is sort of striking me, before I get into the conscience stuff, which there is a huge threat, I think, in this constitutional amendment, that it's going to basically erode a whole bunch of California state restrictions on forcing pro-life healthcare providers to do abortions.
Right.
Just before I get to that, maybe just a general thing. I get that Roe v. Wade got overturned.
It's a good thing.
I get that liberals are very upset about it.
Yes.
I get that there is always the urge when you are an elected official, when a crisis happens, to be seen to be, quote, doing something.
Yes.
Right? And these are liberal state legislators, liberal governor. They want to demonstrate to their voters in an election year, here we are, we're doing something for you, the Democrat voters of California. Here's what we are doing. Nonetheless, I think two things are weird. One, the bending over backwards nature of the pro-choice efforts, while at the same time ignoring or not addressing the humongous problems with prenatal care provision that we have in the state and in our region of the state, most especially. So the massive overemphasis on these things, I understand that people can walk and chew gum at the same time, but at the same time,
unless you're the California Democratic Party, I mean, I'm just saying they literally they have proven that they can't even walk without chewing the gum.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of I get that you can address problems with prenatal health care inequities,
sure,
while still promoting abortion provision, but I don't think they have been.
Yep.
And I think you can see it as far as, we're funding, we're going to try to fund post-viability abortions. We're going to eliminate, they have passed legislation already, starting January 1st. They're going to eliminate all out-of-pocket costs for all abortion, for anyone who has any kind of insurance. Abortion will be free, no cost out of pocket. And at the same time, prenatal care is really expensive, and Medi-Cal doesn't do a good job covering OB, and a lot of OBs don't want to take Medi-Cal patients as a result. And it's something like almost 25% of people who live in South Fresno don't get any prenatal care before they deliver. And it's like a 10% drop from North Fresno, over 10% drop from North Fresno to South Fresno. So, again, the walk and chew gum argument isn't always valid, but in this case, I think it's real. I think to see this total lack of emphasis, total lack of urgency in addressing this real, serious, ongoing problem with prenatal care provision, but oh my gosh, we're going to just fall all over ourselves to have state-funded 9-month abortions. It shows the priorities of our state legislature. All right, when we come back, we're going to dig into the conscience violative, the conscience threatening aspect of the incoming state constitutional amendment. That's next on Right to Life Radio. Right to Life Radio. Thank you all so much for listening. All right, Jonathan, let's get to the meat and potatoes of this show, which is talking about the constitutional amendment and its the various ways in which I think it can infringe on conscience rights.
Yes.
I had been sort of afraid of this constitutional amendment, which we will be voting on this November. It's a constitutional amendment, an amendment to the California state constitution. It'll be a ballot initiative in November to enshrine a right to abortion in the state constitution, but it's a very broad right to abortion. It's almost entirely unbounded right to abortion. There's the legislative language of this constitutional amendment is the language is very sparse. There's not a lot in there. And there's a real question about what precisely it will do. Okay, what precisely it will do. So, let's talk about, this is one of the things I think it will do. Let's recall again the exact text of this constitutional amendment. I'll read it again. The state shall not deny or interfere with an individual's reproductive freedom in their most intimate decisions, which includes their fundamental right to choose to have an abortion and their fundamental right to choose or refuse contraceptives. So the state shall not deny or interfere with, and denying and interfering with are two different things. Interfering is, I think, a lower bar. Denial is more than just interfering. So the state can't even interfere within individuals' reproductive freedom in their most intimate decisions, which includes their fundamental right to choose to have an abortion. So, we have to think then, what are things, because this is so vague, who has the job of interpreting this, Jonathan?
Well, that would be, obviously, John, conservative members of the California Republican Party, pastors,
right,
priests, pregnancy care center leaders.
Bishop Brennan.
Yeah.
Incorrect. Those are not the people who will be interpreting ultimately what this amendment to the California state constitution means. The people who will interpret what this California state constitutional amendment means are the justices of the California State Supreme Court. So we have to think, what are provisions of California law that pro-choice activists maybe don't like?
Yes.
That they could cast as state interference with the right to abortion. I ask myself this. I stay up at night, Jonathan. I stare at the ceiling and I ask, what are state laws? What are existing state laws that could be cast as an interference with the right to abortion? And my wife says, go to bed. And I say, but what? And anyway. So, what are some things that could be cast that way? I immediately turned my thought to a New England Journal of Medicine article that I talked about on this show almost 5 years ago, and which I have never stopped talking about since, because I think it was a really important article. It was really, really important. As much as everyone makes fun of me for harping on things, this was a New England Journal of Medicine article that was written 5 years ago in 2017, April 6, 2017. Written by Ronit Stahl, PhD, and Ezekiel Emanuel, MD, PhD. Longtime listeners to Right to Life Radio know who that is. Ezekiel Emanuel is the brother of former Chicago mayor and former chief of staff to Barack Obama, Rahm Emanuel. He is an oncologist who I believe is based in Pennsylvania. And Ezekiel Emanuel wrote the Affordable Care Act. Okay, he's a very, very prominent figure in the intersection between medicine and public policy. He is one of President Biden's lead healthcare advisors. He is super duper pro-choice.
Super duper pro euthanasia.
Super pro assisted suicide. Bad dude. Okay, from our perspective, as a pro-life organization, supports a lot of bad stuff. He wrote this piece in 2017 called Physicians, Not Conscripts, Conscientious Objection in Healthcare. This was from the April 6, 2017 edition of the New England Journal of Medicine. Thanks to my mom for getting me the login and password so I could read the whole article. So, he's talking about conscientious objection in medicine and how he basically thinks that the ability, sanctioned under state law, sanctioned by, okayed by the ethical guidelines of various professional organizations, the ability of OBGYNs and other obstetric healthcare personnel to say, I'm not going to participate in abortion, he thinks is wrong. He thinks abortion, while it is a socially controversial procedure, he says it is not a medically controversial procedure. It is a widely accepted medical procedure. You cannot have healthcare personnel just refusing to do a core healthcare service that's at the heart of that profession. And in his opinion, people should either not practice obstetrics or do abortions. That should be your only options, according to Ezekiel Emanuel, is either do abortions or don't practice OBGYN healthcare.
I mean, John, in his defense, when any person, a lay person such as myself, who does not have two doctors for parents, I mean, when I think of the core competencies of being able to successfully bring a new life into the world, among those core competencies are the ability to take said life right before it comes out.
Right, exactly. Yes, of course. Now, so this is not just one random wingnut saying that these state conscience protections are unnecessary. This is Ezekiel flippin' Emanuel. This is, again, one of the most prominent mainstream left medical, healthcare, public policy figures in America. Again, it's the guy who wrote the Affordable Care Act. I would be astonished if his viewpoints on this topic were not... I would be astonished if the people who drafted this constitutional amendment or who advised the legislators who drafted this constitutional amendment, I would be shocked if they were unaware of his views about state laws protecting conscience rights of healthcare providers who don't want to do abortions. I then turn to California Health and Safety Code, Section 123420. No employer or other person shall require a physician, a registered nurse, a licensed vocational nurse, or any other person employed or with staff privileges at a hospital, facility, or clinic to directly participate in the induction or performance of an abortion if the employee or other person has filed a written statement with the employer or the hospital, facility, or clinic indicating a moral, ethical, or religious basis for refusal to participate in the abortion. No such employee or person with staff privileges in a hospital, facility, or clinic shall be subject to any penalty or discipline by reason of his or her refusal to participate in an abortion. No such employee of a hospital, facility, or clinic that does not permit the performance of abortions or persons with staff privileges therein shall be subject to any penalty or discipline on account of the person's participation in the performance of an abortion in other than the hospital, facility, or clinic. So this piece, it goes on. It says no one can be fired from their medical employer because they don't do abortions. No medical school or other facility for the education or training of physicians, nurses, or other medical personnel shall refuse admission to a person or penalize the person in any way because of the person's unwillingness to participate in the performance of an abortion for moral, ethical, or religious reasons. No one can nothing in this article shall require a nonprofit hospital or other facility or clinic that is organized or operated by a religious corporation or other religious organization to perform abortions. Okay, so this section of the California Health and Safety Code, 123420, it protects individuals who don't want to do abortions. It protects institutions that don't want to do abortions. Given how, in the very mainstream view of people like Rahm Emanuel, of people like the ACLU, okay, and by the way, the ACLU and related groups have published whole big articles about how much Catholic hospitals especially interfere with reproductive health care by not performing abortions, especially in parts of, say, California, where the Catholic hospital is the only game in town, where they're the only healthcare provider in town. This section of the Health and Safety Code, I think, could be deemed state action interfering with the right to abortion. Now, there are some layers of federal protection for doctors so that they don't have to perform abortions. There are sources of state funding that could, basically there are sources of state funding that a state could jeopardize for itself if they force doctors to perform abortions.
I laugh, John, because
no state would ever risk
I mean,
funding.
Come on. What are the chances that a state would be so brazen as to wantonly violate the Weldon Amendment? Because surely a Republican president and his administration would enforce that against the state.
Oh, so you mean like when California has violated the Weldon Amendment for years by forcing every insurance plan in the state to cover abortion, and the Trump administration literally took them 3 years and 11 months to actually enforce it against the state of California, and then it was immediately reversed by President Biden? Is that what you maybe are referring to, Jonathan?
I mean, perhaps. Maybe.
Okay. So, and furthermore, we could see perhaps a Democrat administration that is known for not trying to enforce sections of federal law that they just don't want to enforce. If California gets rid of its conscience protections for doctors who don't want to do abortions, which I think very reasonably this constitutional amendment could be interpreted as doing just that. Because again, who interprets what this constitutional amendment means? It's not Bishop Brennan. It's not Archbishop Gomez. It's not me or Jonathan. The people who interpret this are the ultra-liberal California State Supreme Court. So if you get some enterprising ACLU lawyer going all the way to the state Supreme Court to say, hey, this is undue infringement on a woman's right to abortion, it should be outlawed under California law under this new constitutional amendment, what do you think's going to happen? Now, maybe we have the ultimate backup of the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution and the U.S. Supreme Court.
Well, the good news, John, is that the Supreme Court, I mean, we can rest easy. The Supreme Court takes every case appealed to it on First Amendment grounds.
Wait. No, they don't. They get thousands the U.S. Supreme Court gets thousands of requests to take cases, and they take like 80 in a given year. So I think this is perhaps one of the most dangerous aspects of this constitutional amendment, is I think this is a sneaky, non-explicit end around for liberals to do via this constitutional amendment and its implicit implications, or its implications. All implications are implicit. What they could not do through an explicit bill or an explicit ballot initiative.
Yes.
We'll talk more about this after the break. This is Right to Life Radio. John Girardi and Jonathan Keller on Power Talk, a production of Right to Life of Central California, rtlcc.org. Right to Life Radio. Thank you all so much as I describe my laying awake at night thinking about what kinds of pro-choice goals the left can use this new constitutional amendment to do. So, Jonathan, here's my question for you.
All right. Shoot.
Obviously, we will vote against this.
Of course.
Obviously, we will urge people to vote against this.
Yes.
How good of a chance, as you drop your phone,
Yes.
how good of a chance do we actually have, do you think, to stop this? I mean, just in terms, well, I guess two separate questions. One, is this kind of thing something Californians actually support? But two, and this is a separate question, is this thing still going to pass in all likelihood?
Well, the bad news is, as we've seen repeatedly from polling, is that there is a bunch of
misinformation.
There's a bunch of misinformation going out there. People
not the kind that Joe Biden wants to regulate, though.
No,
This
no.
is
fine
the okay
misinformation.
kind of misinformation when it benefits him.
I think there is a complete willingness to try to push forward this because they know it will. The Democrats and the progressive abortion rights lobby will aggressively push this forward and say, we have to do this. The sky is falling. We have to draw this line in the sand and protect people here in the state of California and people who come from around the country. Mm-hmm. I think there is a decent chance this passes because of some of the levels of misinformation. I also think that they're going to raise a ton of money to try to promote this. You're going to have every celebrity talking about Proposition 1, which, by the way, John, I don't know that we mentioned that.
Oh, is that the name of it?
It is officially and formally Proposition 1.
Proposition 1.
They actually changed the. They added a rider to the budget that was just passed. Mm-hmm. Even though all the other propositions are like Prop 32, 33, 34, it should be like Prop 37 or something. But they wanted to make this seem so crucially important.
So it's Proposition 1.
It is Proposition 1.
Okay. Well, I'm going to stop calling it the Constitutional Amendment. I'm going to call it Prop 1.
Prop 1.
Okay. So, and that's my fear is that, learning about these things, like, it takes about $30 million to really effectively combat and defeat a ballot initiative. All things being equal, and nothing ever is equal, but this is kind of an average of what you need to raise in order to stop bad ballot initiative that you want to stop. You need somewhere in the ballpark of $30 million. And I think this is one of the depressing things about California politics right now, for anyone who has a brain in their head and eyeballs functioning, is there just isn't the juice to defeat socially. There's no juice on the right, basically.
Right.
I'm not trying to equate the pro-life cause here with Republican causes, but let's just acknowledge some political reality that for the most part, Republicans are pro-life, and for the most part, pro-lifers are Republicans, with wonderful exceptions all over the place. I'm just trying to look at this from a political analysis point of view here.
Well, John, let me give you a very clear example of this. I think...
but basically, no Republicans want a statewide office in forever.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and let me very quickly, I know we're running out of time very quickly, but comparing this to the last major social conservative ballot amendment fight, which was 14 years ago, Proposition 8.
Yeah.
The amendment defining marriage between a man and a woman.
Yeah.
Part of the reason why so much money was raised for that, and it was $40 million that was raised in favor, $43 million in opposition, by the way. So it was the most expensive ballot initiative in American history at that time. Mm-hmm. Part of the reason was because, yes, Barack Obama was running against John McCain, but everyone kind of knew he was cruising to election.
Oh, sure, especially in California.
John McCain was going to go down in flames, and there was really, John, there's no other major game in the country that social conservatives could pour their money into.
Right.
In this case, all 435 House seats are up. The control of the House of Representatives is up. The control of the Senate is up,
Right.
along with very key governor races around the country.
Right.
So at best, even if there's millions of dollars that pro-lifers want to invest, would you rather win a pro-life majority in the Senate or defeat this and
Right.
keep it status quo? in
Right,
California?
and I think also there's a lot of Orange County conservative money that is just not going out to these kinds of causes in the same level that you saw with Prop 8.
Right.
Well, that'll do it for this week's show. We'll see you next time on Right to Life Radio. A production, as always, of Right to Life Central California, rtlcc.org.